Lynda and I both come from this approach, and we do believe that this is the foundation, if you will, of any DEI model that we look at. So we come from the perspective, if you will, of this, or presenting this to you as the pause model. I came from the perspective of make sure that you think before you speak. Engage in your thought process before you actually engage in conversation. And Lynda, can you share your perspective on that?
Yes, and because as a speech trainer and helping people with communication directly, one of the things I always said to people is pause so people listen to you and understand you. And that gives them time to process what you're saying, and your pause allows you to hear them and wait and understand, or have time for you to just help formulate your thoughts. Mm-hmm. So it's different ways of looking at pause, but they work so well together, and they're both so important.
A is for acknowledging differences. So what does that mean? A lot of times what happens when we are in relationship or in communication, or when we are meeting someone, the first thing that we do is we go to someone who is similar. I remember being a cheerleader in high school, and when I walked into a lunchroom, what I did was I found the people that were like me. Right? I wanted to go to the athletic table. I wanted to go to the people who knew me, who were familiar with me.
Let's talk about understanding what biases are. You already mentioned that there are so many biases. What do we do to understand it?
We often see the things that are in blue, the inner circle here. We see the different components of diversity, but here's the thing. These are external, right? But when you see the colorful, the outer circle, these are our biases. These are more internal. And so these are things that we often are, as Lynda said, are our biases that we have not dealt with. And so what do we do to step back and actually allow ourselves to say, wait a minute, this is a bias, and I do need to make sure that I disrupt that bias. As soon as I see it happening, I have to acknowledge that it's happening, and then again, begin to disrupt that.
How can we seek commonalities? And Kashonna thought she was seeking commonalities. Yes, she found the athlete's table. But my take on this was she wasn't just looking at the commonalities, because our brain doesn't immediately look at that. Our brain, and neuroscientists have found this out, that our brain is hardwired to categorize. You look like me, you don't. You have long hair, I have short hair. You may be black, I may be white. You're athletic, this is the geek table. This is the performing arts table. And we all experienced that in school when we went into the cafeteria. And so what happens is our brain immediately categorizes friend or foe. And it doesn't sound very good, but that is how our brain, or our amygdala, works. We look, do we want to approach that person or stay away, or possibly are we neutral? We went through the P and the A, acknowledging it, the U, understanding it, the S, seeking the commonalities. We then have to educate ourselves as well as the people around us. We need to observe people in front of us. We can't just listen to them. We need to observe those expressions. We need to observe their body language. Are they looking at us? Are they looking away or looking down? Do they change their facial expression when you say something? And what are their gestures? Are they closed off, or are they open to us? And so we need to observe. And then, of course, we need to listen. Everybody talks about being able to listen, but we want to add on top of that, not just the words, but the tone of the voice. How does it sound? We've often heard somebody say, I'm okay, and the words are saying something very positive, but their tone, I'm okay, and their facial expression is going to tell us something very different. And so we have to gather that information and then engage with somebody. Either approach them because they seem upset, or they may be angry, or they may be frustrated with something we just said. And if we do the observation and the listening, then we can engage and have those meaningful relationships. and conversation. In order to be a good listener, you do need your ears to hear. We all know that. But it's wonderful that this symbol recognizes that you also need your eyes. You also need undivided attention. We cannot fully listen when we have a phone in our hand. We cannot fully listen when our head's in the computer. And so we need to give that person the undivided attention so that we can focus. We need to use our brain, of course, to think and understand, or our mind, understand what's being said. But this is what I love the most. We must use our heart to feel. Because if we can't have the compassion or the empathy or put ourselves in that other person's shoes as they're talking, we're not going to be able to move forward. We all have biases. If anybody would say, I'm not biased, they're not being honest with themselves. We all have our biases, good or bad. It's our lens. It's how we look at things. And so we need to intentionally challenge ourselves to disrupt it and make those changes. And sometimes just question when you say something, how did that land? They look fun, they look different, something changed. What is it about what I just said? Because if we don't focus on that, we're not doing anything to improve that relationship or handle a difficult situation.
DEI is not just a one and done. It's not something that you can come today and you're like, okay, great, I'm ready to move and everything is going to change. It doesn't quite happen like that. You have to understand that this is a journey. This is a journey. And as you can see in this graphic that we put before you, it does not just include race. I know that a lot of people think that it does, and a lot of people just kind of stop right there, but we want you to understand that there are a lot of components that diversity includes. And as we walk through all of those components, it is going to be a tiring, sometimes a frustrating journey along the way. But we hope that we encourage you today. We inspire you to continue moving, understanding that we are just getting started.